Thank you for the introduction. Like Ben said, I'm going to talk about REU sites and some of the experiences that we've had with setting them up and sort of things you can do to improve student success when they engage in these experiences. Before I begin, I would like to also acknowledge my colleague, Harita Maladi. She's been helping a lot with evaluation and assessment, so some of the data that I'm going to show is really because of her. I really don't consider myself an engineering education researcher. So before I dive into the details about our specific site, I just wanted to introduce the NSF REU in general. So NSF is National Science Foundation, and REU stands for Research Experiences for Undergraduates. It's really a flagship program in the US for undergraduate research. And this is a foundation-wide program that really supports that supports participation in science and really STEM fields by undergraduate students. So the goal of NSF with this program is really to attract and retain a diverse STEM talent. And the program typically has two funding mechanisms. One is through REU supplement, so someone with an existing NSF grant can request an REU supplement and bring a student into their lab. A more common funding mechanism is REU Site, where NSF provides about usually 3 years of funding for 10 students per year, so about 30 students in total, and these students spend 10 weeks on the university campus conducting research. So with our REU Site, we are focusing on sustainable, resilient transportation systems. Really, we are trying to make students understand how transportation relates to climate change and what we can do to mitigate some of those impacts. So there we have 3 research thrust areas. One is electric and autonomous vehicles. Then we have green materials and structures. I know I'm speaking at a concrete conference, but we don't have a single project that focused on concrete because my research is really looking at composites and applications in concrete, and the colleague, Paramita Mundal, actually she was at the University of Delaware, she left before we started. So nothing concrete related, but I think some of the stuff that we did is relevant, even for concrete researchers. And finally, resilient infrastructure here. And one of the unique aspects of our site is that we really wanted to have a diverse group of students, not just when we talk about minorities, but also diverse in terms of their background, educational background. So we had students from science backgrounds, students from different engineering fields, and so on. REU sites are a huge lift. So this is, in theory, just a summer commitment for a faculty member, but in reality, it's not. We start in October to solicit project ideas from our mentors. So for 10 students, we usually have 1 mentor per student. So it requires usually 9 to 10 projects. Then we have to launch the website. We start the recruitment in December usually, finalize the selection process by March. Then between March and May, we are dealing with the logistics that involve payroll, housing, travel, setting up pre-summer meetings with the students, between the students and the faculty mentors, and then planning for the summer activities. And then the major part of the program obviously takes place in the summer between June and August. And finally, when we close out, we analyze the assessment data that we collect, we refine, we make some notes for refinement for the following year, and then we have to report to the NSF. So it's really a year-long commitment. So today I'm going to focus primarily on this, the summer part of the REU. If there are faculty members here who are interested in applying for an REU or have other questions about these other aspects of the REU sites, I'm happy to stick around and talk to them after the session. So the starting point, of course, is anticipated outcomes. What do we want the students to really leave the program with? And this would be different depending on the focus, but for us, we wanted the students to understand how emissions affect the environment, how the transportation relates to climate change, and also to understand the methods that we can employ to achieve sustainable and more resilient transportation systems. And then on the more general side of things, we want students to become more confident in working in a research lab setting, improve their research skills, and of course their communication skills, because undergrads tend to struggle with that. And in that sense, I see really three critical aspects for student success. So that would be activities that students are going to participate in, the mentoring, specifically quality of mentoring that they receive, and ultimately evaluation and assessment. This last piece is oftentimes missed because, you know, we're so busy trying to implement all of these activities that we forget that we should also evaluate how well are we achieving the objectives that we set out. But for us, this has been really a critical component to create this sort of closed loop of continuous refinement of the program. So when it comes to activities, we're thinking about them in sort of two categories: cohort activities and then individual activities. Cohort activities would be those that students participate in as a group, and as part of that, we engage them in things that would develop their broader understanding of the subject matter. In our case, it's climate change, transportation, the relationship with between the two. Also develop communication skills, collaborative spirit, and sense of community. These students come from different parts of the country, different backgrounds, different types of institutions. For some of them, it's the first time that they're leaving their home state, so we want them to feel like they belong for those 10 weeks when they're at the University of Delaware. And then on the individual side of things is where students, we really want them to not necessarily become an independent researcher, but sort of get on that trajectory of becoming an independent researcher, really understand what that means. Then prepare and present a poster, and ultimately write a conference-style manuscript. So within 10 weeks, they're supposed to achieve, go through a mini grad school program, which is a lot. So in terms of cohort activities, we also have several subcategories. So here we have technical workshops and activities, which are really meant to introduce students to sort of big picture problems and teach them some of the big picture concepts about the, in our case, sustainable and resilient transportation. So here we have workshops where we talk about initially transportation and climate change. The University of Delaware is well known for this vehicle-to-grid technology. I'm not going to get into that now, but we sort of expose them to that and take them to the labs on campus that deal with these problems. We then talk about sustainability applications in transportation and take them also on field trips to give them a sort of big picture understanding of what can be done in the field. And this is important to us because when they work on their individual projects, they're getting sort of the microscopic view of you know, what the problems might be. They're so focused on solving a small part of a bigger problem, but this gives them really a bigger context for their work. Then we also have professional development workshops, and of course these activities are scheduled so that students can benefit from them early on in the program, where we talk about research ethics, public speaking and presentation, and how to prepare a presentation or a poster, literature and review and technical writing, grad school application process, tech transfer and commercialization, because we also have students working in, like I said, other fields, so like batteries, for example, where some of this might be relevant. And we also realize that individual mentors or individual mentoring may cover some of these things, but there's a lot of diversity in how, you know, we approach writing as faculty advisors, or how we teach our students to do lit review. So we thought that it also made sense to have a level field for students to, you know, get insights into these topics from one person instead of relying just on their mentor. And then we also want students to apply some of this stuff. So we have what I call here experiential activities. When the students show up, so they're on campus for 10 weeks, the second week they have to present their research proposals. So already the second week they're practicing their speaking skills. And then every 2 weeks after that, we ask them to do a progress update. And so when we do these progress updates, we hand out peer evaluation forms so their peers can evaluate them, but we also have a faculty mentor present there. And so they offer them verbal feedback on what they could improve in their speaking style or their presentation. Something that's unique about our site, I would say, is the journal club. We expect students to write this conference-style manuscript They work on that with their advisor, but we also want them to learn how to read a paper, how to understand how the paper should be structured, understand how to visualize the data, get some examples of good papers and bad papers. So we meet as part of the journal club, assign them some papers to read, and then discuss them with the students. And finally, everything culminates with the poster symposium where students finally get to present their research to an audience. Now, I said community is huge and important for this, so we also have social events to forge better relationships between the mentors and the students, but also for students to interact more between themselves. Just some examples here of what that might look like. We're still getting creative with this part because sometimes it really is an afterthought, considering that everything that comes before that takes a lot of time. Now, individual activities are really, I would say, the most important when it comes to REU sites and rely on good mentoring. We have many challenges with mentoring, especially at R1 universities. Many faculty, even though they will tell you I've had X number of undergrads in my lab, are not really experienced with mentoring undergraduate students. And this is because they use them as cheap workforce, and they never see them sometimes. They just assign them a grad student, tell them, okay, do X activity in the lab, but they never meet with them. They never talk to them about their aspirations, career goals, what they may want to do, what they're really interested in. There's oftentimes lack of communication about expectations. It's also not clear to undergrads sometimes where they fit in the bigger picture. And also, they underestimate the amount of time it takes to mentor an REU student. They think this is, again, going to be that undergrad that they've hired hourly that's going to stay for a year, but this is a 10-week program where a student has to go from never having done research to now writing a research manuscript. So what we figured works the best whenever it's possible is something we call tiered mentoring approach, where we ask faculty mentors to assign an undergrad who's already in their lab, one of the top undergrads preferably, to work directly with a student on a daily basis. Then a grad student who would supervise a student, every 2 to 3 days, meet with them. And then a postdoc, we have some faculty who work with postdocs as well, so there's a postdoc there, and then they meet with the faculty at least once a week. So that way there's someone that the student can really interact with on a daily basis where they feel comfortable speaking their mind. Sometimes they're intimidated of faculty or postdocs. So, and we also ask faculty to arrange pre-summer meetings. So these are usually virtual, and we give a checklist to both the student and the faculty mentor, and there's a list of things that they should discuss. So that way, we are sort of putting the responsibility on both the student and the faculty to ensure that these things get addressed. The first thing that they do is they develop an individualized development plan, or IDP. I don't know how many are familiar with this. They're very common in my institution. I don't know if others use them. But essentially, the student writes out what their goals are, what they want to achieve in a year, in 5 years, what their career goal is, what their plan is for the summer, how are they going to achieve everything they want to achieve for the summer. And then they meet with the faculty mentor to sort of finalize that, so that gives them really a trajectory for those 10 weeks and then even beyond. They talk about expectations, they get introduced to the graduate students or postdocs, as well as the undergrads. Faculty, we ask them to share some papers so the students can do some literature review before they come on campus. They set a project schedule and scope, schedule weekly meetings. There's a few other things that I didn't mention here, but we found that this really helped a lot with ensuring that students don't feel super lost when they show up on campus that first week. And finally, evaluation and assessment is a critical component here. I've been a PI on two, so I'm the PI on this site, and I was co-PI on a previous site in a different institution where we didn't have so many resources. So we did evaluation and assessment internally, and now I realize that we didn't know what we were doing. So now we are partnering with the Center for Research and Education in Education and Social Policy at the University of Delaware, where they have standardized instruments and a lot of experience with doing the assessment. So I've also learned that this also eliminates bias. So we really get unbiased data. And like I said, they use adequate instruments for what we're trying to measure. So we focus here on student gains in terms of all the skills that we are looking at, but also student satisfaction with the program. And so we conduct a pre, mid, and post-summer surveys. Pre and post-summer surveys are sort of to give us the comparison of where the students were before the summer versus after the program. The midsummer survey is more formative to just let us know if there's any major issues, something that we need to fix before the program ends. We also conduct student interviews and then post-program tracking. We are still a young site, so we don't have a lot of data there. And we also are looking at how these cohort activities are affecting students' understanding of specifically sustainability-related issues. So I'm not going to go over the details of how this is done, but we have some open-ended questions, some Likert-scale questions where students sort of indicate their perception of their understanding of different topics. This is what some of the data looks like. Again, I don't think it's appropriate for this conference for me to go and dive deep into this, but it's always nice to sort of see changes and improvements. Something I want to close with is interviews. You know, being an engineer, we like quantitative data, and interviews are sort of qualitative, open for interpretation, but I loved reading some of these comments. You know, we asked students how their knowledge of issues of sustainability relevant to transportation was impacted by their experience. And like I said, we have students from different backgrounds. So without even being prompted, they're recognizing that, you know, I'm learning from this student in chemistry that I can do this, and then I'm learning from this student in civil engineering that I can do this, and we can work together to solve these problems. They start to develop this understanding of, you know, importance of interdisciplinary collaborations. Similar here, the student is recognizing that, you know, in classes, they just tell you about the problem, but they don't teach you how to really fix it. And with doing this hands-on research, they're able to now get a really good idea of what they can do on their own to come up with some solutions. With that, I would like to thank and recognize the mentors that I've been working with this past year. It's been a great group, really engaged with the students, and I think that's part of the reason why we've been pretty successful with what we are doing. And finally, recognize NSF for funding the site, as well as the Delaware Center for Transportation for providing some internal co-funding, and as well as the Center for Composite Materials. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. Questions?
How did you advertise the program and recruit and then go through the applications?
Yeah, so that took a while to figure out, especially because I think we've got funding right after COVID. So we had some funds to travel to different institutions, which we never did because of the challenges with that. We basically have a website where we advertise you know, the opportunity, different projects. Something that was helpful, I think, was also sending out emails to colleagues, you know, specific people that you know are really going to distribute this to the students, and they're more personal than just sending a mass email to all the department chairs. We've done those as well, but I believe these personalized emails really helped. Those would be, I would say, the main strategies, but something that was also extremely helpful is that now NSF has this platform where they manage the applications. So students who didn't even hear about your site now are able to search it based on their interests. So we are getting a lot of applications through that. We started the first year, I think, with about 60, 70 applications, and then this year we had 110. And I just see this number growing if we renew, and we only have 10 spots. So, you know, the recruitment, I think, was the easier part of it than I initially thought it would be. Yeah.
Are the students who ultimately come to University of Delaware
They're from all over the U.S. We even had students from Puerto Rico. I've forged some connections there, so they always sent us some students. Arizona. We didn't have Alaska or Hawaii, but like from within the continental U.S., yeah. No. But we do get a lot of applications locally, and we intentionally try to get, just a few local students, but more students from states that are farther away with different culture. And yep. Yeah, Garrett.
Are you having any impact on your graduate? Have you had any students stick around?
Not yet, but some of these students are. So we started. This is our third year, and a lot of the students are sophomore, juniors. So we did get some applications. I know in chemical engineering, and part of the reason is that the University of Delaware is like top 7, 8 in chemical engineering. So they've had students who worked with faculty there. They've had applications. In civil, we still haven't had any, but we also mostly had sophomores. So they would be graduating now and then maybe applying next year. But we're keeping in touch with them, and for sure, the hope is that they would apply and maybe come for a graduate degree at our institution. That's it. Okay. Thank you.